How's it going, guys? Tyler Young, come back at you from Grade 8 Performance. Gonna take a second to kind of go over my bread and butter. I've put this video off for a little bit so I have to get my followers up, and we're gonna talk about what has become my best event in Strongman. And I'm gonna cover a little bit of how I approach the log, training for the log, and getting into a split jerk position. Now, let me go ahead and say, this is how I do it. There are a lot of people that are a lot stronger than me, or just a little stronger than me, that do this completely different, and that works for them. But this is what works for me, and this is what's taken me. I'm going to attach, once I get done talking for a minute, I'm going to attach a 360 log. I hit it a 220 body weight a couple weeks ago up at Indiana Iron. So I'm going to start, and I'm going to jump right into figure out what style is going to work for you. It took me a long time. I was already push pressing over 300 pounds before I even entertained the idea of a split jerk. So make sure that you have the strength base to accommodate any kind of new techniques or anything like that. And obviously start light. So we're going to start, the first thing I want to touch on is footwear. Strict pressures, push jerk, whatever. I think that you would be well suited for a powerlifting shoe. I use this with a lot of success for a long time. But when I went to the split jerk, I kind of got away from it. This is the Addy Powerlift. I think it's the 2.0, but I could be wrong with that. But I finally got away with it because I found when I dug that back foot in, I wasn't really getting enough give here. So from there, I transitioned to a flat-based wrestling shoe. Now, this is the multi-purpose shoe that I recommend for my other Strongman moving events and stuff like that, because it gives, and it's very flexible, but it's also very supportive. And these are just the Asics. I don't remember what exact model number they are, but very quality shoe. It's like 40, 50 bucks, and you don't ever have to worry about them. But I went ahead and replaced them too. I finally found that once I got to a heavy certain weight, it was giving the way I needed it to, but it didn't quite have enough support for me to support the weight that I was putting over my head. So from there, I ended up with what I'm using now, and these are the Innovate Fast Lift 325s. Now, I'm sure there are tons of good Nike Romaleos, and the Fast Lift even has a 3.0 out right now. But to be completely honest, I just caught a sick deal on these, so I went ahead. And these Olympic weightlifting shoes do a good job so far bridging the gap of all the problems that I've had in successive shoes. So it gives me a really big heel. So in the lap, I'm really stable, I'm really strong. It gives really well so that back foot catches in a good position. And it's got enough support that it doesn't beat my feet up when I am split jerking for a lot of reps, or I've got a lot of weight over my head. So, like I said, here in a second, I'm going to splice in that 360 video from the other day. So there's a few things I want you guys to look for when you're watching that. I want you to watch my feet position. I want you to watch how I pick. And I want you to watch how tight everything is at the top. So, I notice a lot of people in Strongman, they keep their feet really, really narrow on the pick to generate more hip force so they can get to the clean, and then they worry about moving their feet out and getting in a good position. That's not the way I do it. I prefer to start with my feet really wide, almost wide with the handles, and that's where my feet stay for the duration of the lift. And there's a good reason for that I'll cover here in a minute. The second thing, Kelbeck talks about it a lot in his video when he's going over the log, is I start with the handles turned away from me. That way, when I pick up, I can set it really high in the lap, okay? And if you notice, I said pick up, I didn't say row. There are a lot of top-level strength athletes that row the log into their lap. That's good. There's lots of different ways to skin a cat. This just happens to be my way. It helps me set, it helps me do what I feel like sets me in a better position so I can get in a good position for the clean and establish from there. So at this point, I'll go ahead and I'll splice in that 20-second video, and then we'll come back and I'll go over the rest of the cues that I use.
Let's go! Go get it! Come on!
So again, I hope you kind of keyed in with the things that I was mentioning. Again, I start in a very wide position. I pick the log up, I set in the lap, and then I use my upper back and my traps to keep it very tight up here to the belly. I don't, if you notice, I didn't jump up and then jump and curl. That's definitely not what we want to do. What I think about doing in my head, once I get to the lap and it's over my belt and tight to the chest, is I think about keeping it there, and then I roll under the log. The log doesn't roll up me. So once I get to a certain point with it, I shoot the elbows under, and then I'm in a good position. So once I get here in the chest position, number one, you have to make sure you're stable. You can't force it too much. I also take my last breath in the lap. I never try to breathe on the chest unless I absolutely have to. So once I'm up here in the chest, I'm really cueing my elbows out to tighten my lats and to keep that upper back tight. Now, from there, it's all about commitment. That's the name of the game. Whether you hit the weight or whether you miss the weight, it's all about how hard and how fast you dig into that commitment. So I open at the knees just like I would on a squat. Again, my feet are already really wide. I open at the knees, and then my feet go out. I don't think about making them vertical. I think about making myself, who I'm already short, I think about making myself as short as I can. That way my triceps can catch the weight. So again, when I dip, I'm trying to make room for those feet to travel out at an angle. So when I'm here and that log catches, then it's just up to my triceps to finish it and for me to walk the weight in. And that's something I feel like I see a lot of problem. People, they'll try to do split jerk a little bit, and maybe they'll over-exaggerate the commitment, and they'll hit their head once or twice, and then they'll give up. Or if I see missed split jerks a lot, they're usually missing, and the log is way out in front of them, and that's because they're not driving over their ears enough. So again, when I dip, I'm shooting that log back over my ears, full-on commitment, head through, and I'm getting into the position, and then I'm letting my triceps clean up the work. Ideally, I want to catch at a lockout. That's obviously the goal. But if I don't, then my tricep, they need to be strong enough for me to finish the movement. So a couple things that I use for that to fix that overhead stability, because I'm sure you guys, if you've competed on a lot, like I mentioned in the previous video, I've had log at like 23 out of my 25 contests. Rarely are two logs the same. In fact, they've all been different. I watched a lot of very good push pressers struggle at nationals with a sledder log because I'm not saying it was misbalanced by any stretch of the imagination, but it just wasn't what they were used to. But I, as a log presser, I do a lot of stabilizer work. So one thing that I use for that, I'll use an earthquake bar. I will use the log and I will strip press it out of the rack, and I will hang kettlebells and dumbbells and plates from it with bands to simulate that earthquake press. That way I can really work that overhead stabilization. I work a lot of tricep overload, so heavy axle floor presses. So again, just working the overload. As far as the clean goes, I prefer to do a lot of good mornings and reverse hypers and glute hams and stuff like that. That way I can really work on generating that hip force that I need to get into the rack position in a good, strong position. So we've covered footwear. We've covered how I pick. We've covered I take my last breath in the lap, big tight into the position, what I cue when I'm in my rack position, what I do with my feet, what I do with my head, what I do with my arms, everything. The ancillary muscle groups and movements that I use to help my log. It's helped it grow to this point. Hopefully it continues to grow based on the things that I'm doing. The only other thing that I have to add is if you're doing them in sequence, like for example, Nationals had a 260-pound log that we had to do for reps, is, again, I try not to breathe on my chest unless I absolutely have to. So after I would hit a split jerk, then I would breathe at the top. Get real tight again, catching it, and cushion the blow with your knees. Those are your shock absorbers. I see a lot of people wreck their first rep and then drop the second rep, and it blows all their air out, and they almost fall over, and then they're fighting an uphill battle from there. So get tight at the top, catch the log, and then get right back into it. So play around with these again. Lots of different ways to skin a cat. This just happens to be my way I skin a cat. So hope it works out for you. Let me know how it goes.